This episode contains an account of a traumatic pregnancy and related medical issues, so please watch or listen with discretion.
We knew what our values were. We knew what we believed, but now there's bleeding, and they said I could bleed to death.
As people in ministry, you kind of have to ask yourself, like, how much can I really go through and continue to proclaim good news to people?
We were, I'd say, definitely in that valley of the shadow of death.
Maybe today I can't believe, but I'm surrounded by a community of people that are believing on my behalf. And it gets you through that darkness to the other side. Welcome to Grace in the Gravity. This is the podcast where pastors you don't know from churches you don't attend tell true stories of good news from right here on planet Earth. My name is Tim, and I will be walking us through today's conversation with Fikre and Lakeisha, who I am really excited to have on the show. I usually set aside about 10 or 20 minutes to talk with someone, make sure that I understand their story correctly. Fikre and Lakeisha gave me over an hour on the phone the other day because, and that was mostly because I wanted to know more. Like, I had so many questions, and their story was so life-giving and fascinating, and I cannot wait for them to get to share it with all you guys. So Fikre and Lakeisha, how are you guys coming in today?
Coming in just a hair under the weather. We're here in Detroit, and it's just breaking out of winter, but full of joy and excited to be here, and it's been a good week.
Yeah, I'm coming in grateful because it's sunny today. We're not Arctic temperatures in Detroit today. The sun was shining, so I'm coming in grateful.
Well, I wish I could say I feel for you guys, but it's 82 degrees here today.
Wow.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like February. This doesn't feel right. But so if you've been a longtime listener to what we do here, you know that this is a part of what we do with the Activated team, where we serve pastors and church leaders. And we do our best to love them as courageously as possible. Fikre and Lakeisha, how are you guys connected with the Activated team?
Well, I met Kirk several years ago. His son actually attends my congregation, and he was coming to visit. We started a conversation, was able to start coaching with Kirk Curlin. And then also the Activated team came in and took our church through the missional pathway for about a year or so, and it's been really good. So that was our first connection and introduction.
Awesome. Yeah, Kirk tends to be the entry point for a lot of people. He's just got that kind of
the charisma.
Yeah, I know. He knows everybody.
Great guy.
Well, hey, let's get into the story that you guys have, because I'm impatient. I can't wait to hear it again, honestly. So we know that, I mean, I know from the story that you guys shared with me that you guys went through a significant season of, well, I don't want to tell the story for you, but there was a lot of things to be fearful about, a lot of things to be anxious about, a lot of things to worry over, and God showed up. So I'm just going to start there. And how do you guys want to tell the story?
Well, I'll just, give the quick setup for when the story takes place. I had been a youth pastor for about 4 years, and was in the midst of ministry, and we were in our 9th year of marriage, and had some trouble with carrying to term after our first child was born. And so we had some ups and downs. And then in 2013, God blessed us with a wonderful daughter. And this was about 7 years after our last child. So a pretty big gap. And we were just kind of moving on, not thinking, anything was going to change much in our life. But God was definitely in the midst of it, just kind of lightening our financial loads and all of those things, and not knowing what was going to happen, but trusting the Lord for those things. And so shortly after that, my wife, in February, I believe, my wife changed jobs. She was working for a bank. But as she changes jobs, we started to notice there were some health challenges that were coming along.
Yeah. It was health challenges that I didn't really know was a challenge initially. I, again, at this point, we have a 6-month-old baby. And I came back from maternity leave, and I was getting back to work. I was nursing the baby. And so there's, usually a delay in your cycle. And so I thought, okay, my cycle just came back. This is a normal process, of womanhood and motherhood. And so this was maybe February, the end of February, March. And then my cycle started getting heavier. And then it was lasting longer than a week. By the beginning of May, I said, okay, I have to go to the doctor. This is not a normal part of any, process. And so called the doctor. And over the phone, they told me that they wanted to test me for endometriosis, which is a form of cancer, and so
that's scary right away. Yeah.
I was terrified. So I go to the doctor. They immediately do a biopsy, and they told me it'll be about 2 days or so before they get the results back from the biopsy. And of course, we're praying. I'm reaching out to family and friends. I got a voicemail saying, I'm sorry, Miss Prince, but your biopsy shows pregnancy tissue. And we believe you're having a miscarriage currently, but you still have remains in you. And so we need you to come in tomorrow as soon as possible and have a D&C, dilate and clear. And so, of course, I'm grieving now because, first of all, I didn't even know I was pregnant.
And you, like you said, you had a little one at the time, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. She was 6 months at this point, 7, 8, months, because she turned 1 in June. So this was May. So she was, 11 months at this point.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, oh my goodness, how was I pregnant and losing the baby and didn't even know that any of this was happening? I just thought it was a heavy cycle. So, I pray about it. Me and my husband, of course, we pray about everything. And I felt like I should call a friend to just to tell her what happened and but this friend is also a doctor. And she prays with me and she says, Lakeisha, something doesn't sound right. I need you to ask for an ultrasound before you let them do any type of procedure like that on you.
When you share this with your friend, the friend who's a doctor is also a believer.
Yes.
And so
yes.
when she says something doesn't feel right, is this medically something doesn't feel right, or like something in my spirit tells me something's not right? Or both? Okay.
Both. She's also a pastor's wife, and she has discernment and she has medical expertise, and she just says none of this feels right to me.
So that's a voice you want to listen to.
Yes.
Yeah. And there were a couple of different things. So getting the call, we were actually traveling back. She had a training in Grand Rapids. We live in Detroit, and so the phone call came in as we were driving back from Grand Rapids. So that's about a 2-hour drive. And we've got, that's more than enough time to go through all of the emotions, make all of the phone calls, and pray and do all these things. And I think one of the things that came to mind was generally when a woman goes into the doctor's office and has those kind of issues, the first thing you do is a pregnancy test. And that was not done.
And they did not do that.
And so they went straight to the biopsy.
Yeah.
I think that's what, as from the doctor perspective of her, she said that part.
That was a warning sign for her. So the next day, I did exactly what she said. I came in for the D&C, but I told them I want an ultrasound before we do anything. And so, of course, my husband comes with me. I'm bracing myself because on the voicemail, they told me that, there will be remains, and that's why you're still bleeding. And so we didn't know what we were going to see on that ultrasound. We're starting the procedure. The tech immediately looks at the screen and her face lights up and she says, oh, this baby's heartbeat is so strong, 140 beats a minute. And then she turns the screen over and we see this baby flipping and almost like dancing. And me and my husband, we just begin to cry. Like we're just bawling like heavy. And this tech, the poor ultrasound tech is just like, it's
What's
good
happening?
News.
So she has no idea. She thinks she's giving you guys
just doing a general.
Yes, she said this is good. It's like I don't understand, and I'm crying. I didn't know I was pregnant. I'm like trying to get it out, and she says that we're 12 weeks pregnant at this point.
Wow.
So we just went through a whole trimester and didn't even know that
No
we
idea.
were pregnant.
Yeah.
Had no idea.
Okay, so you see the baby on the ultrasound is actually healthy, and they're telling you, oh, we need to essentially terminate the pregnancy, and then
Yeah.
you see this healthy baby. So
Yeah.
now what?
That's the question that we were asking.
At that
You know,
point,
so
we are
what do
so
we do
shocked.
now? You know, it's a 72-hour emotional roller coaster of this could be cancer. Okay, it's not cancer. It was
It's-
a lost pregnancy. Okay,
Yeah.
let's just check things out. It's not a lost pregnancy. It's actually a viable pregnancy.
Yes.
You know, at this point, and
Yes.
baby is doing great.
Great.
So
And you still need an answer to the question of why are you bleeding?
correct.
I never actually got that answer. We don't really
And
know.
other priorities then at that point.
At that
point,
point,
yes.
we had to pick our.
Yeah.
And so what ended up happening after that is we went back to the doctor who had been testing and everything, and the doctor was in shock, but at the same time said, "Well, it still doesn't bode well for the child because we
Because
did
you are bleeding.
because you're bleeding and because we did the biopsy, and so it's going to put you at risk and the baby at risk. We think you should just go ahead and abort the child and try to start over."
Well, and that's got to be hard news to hear after having seen this baby moving around, heart beating, and yeah.
Exactly.
The contrast of this news coming from the doctor and what we saw on the screen,
Right.
They just weren't lining up. And we're sitting in the office, doctor leaves the office, and we just look at each other and say,
We need a new doctor.
we need at least another opinion,
Yes. So the beautiful thing is I had just started this brand new job, and of course I had to tell my boss what was going on, because now I'm missing a couple of days of work or having to leave in. And so he recommends his wife's doctor when they had their child. And this was the hospital that he recommended was maybe 2 blocks away or less than a mile from my new job. Very close, very convenient for me to go and get
That's
my
a little too
checkups.
convenient. Like,
Yes,
almost
I
just
mean,
like, okay.
I could just jump over on my lunch break, get a checkup, come back. It was very convenient, and the doctor was amazing.
Yes.
And so now starting to feel happy, like, oh wow, we're actually having another baby, and then week 20, normal day, coming home from work, going to meet my husband to eat dinner at a restaurant with the family. And we were in the process of moving out of our apartment. So
part of the paring down.
Yeah, part of the paring down. We're moving out of our apartment. So we couldn't eat in the kitchen. Everything was packed up. So we went to go eat out to eat. So I get out the car. My husband comes to the car to meet me at the car, and because I had picked up our baby from the daycare. And as I'm getting out the car and he's grabbing the car seat, I noticed that my water breaks. And it's like a full on what you see on TV, oh my God, my water breaks. And it's a big spill
Oh my God.
in the parking lot at the restaurant.
Now I'm a pastor and a leadership coach. I'm not an obstetrician, but I don't think your water breaking at 20 weeks is supposed to happen. Am I right about that?
It was not. It was devastating.
Yeah.
And we had experienced a miscarriage in 2009. And so I at that point knew what was happening. Mm-hmm. And of course, it's grief again. Yeah. And we rushed to the emergency room, and we're tearful. And we go to a Catholic hospital, which is the same, hospital I had been getting my prenatal care. Mm-hmm. And they are very compassionate, but they just basically explain, like, I'm sorry you're having a miscarriage.
There's nothing we can do.
There's nothing we can do. But the baby is still alive, has a heartbeat and everything,
and the heartbeat is still strong.
Yeah, but you're open, and you can have an infection. There's so many complications, and they tell us you need to have an abortion. You need to have a dilate and clear. Start over. This one is, this baby is passing. But then they say, we can't do it here because we're a Catholic hospital, so we have to take you to another hospital. to have this done. And I was so confused because you're a Christian hospital. You have these morals and things and values that you hold to, but you're going to send me to this other hospital. I said, I have the same morals and values that you have, and I don't feel comfortable. I don't want to go to the other hospital
you want. My convictions are my convictions, right?
Yeah. But I have the same convictions that you have. Like I can't.
And I
but
think
they
for
have
them,
medical rules.
Right. For them, it's the tension of them walking out what they believe, but also,
and scientifically, they're saying that the baby is not viable until 24 weeks. So I was only.
And you're at 20, right? Okay.
Yes. And so essentially they're saying there's no way that you can last 4 weeks and be pregnant. And, but when I did not agree to having an abortion, they said, well, there's nothing we can do for you here. But if you go home and come back at 24 weeks and you're still pregnant, we will help you.
So that's essentially go home for bed rest. Don't do anything. Lay flat. Try to care for yourself as best as possible. If you have a miscarriage fully, then you can come back and they'll help me. But if you're still pregnant, come back at 24.
So it almost sounds like they're saying, like, we don't advise this, but if you want to do that, go home. Yeah. Call us in 4 weeks.
That's exactly.
So we had a doctor's appointment scheduled for that fourth week.
Yeah, we knew what our values were. We knew what we believed, but we had no idea how or if it was possible to do.
Yeah.
We were just taking it one step at a time, one action, one day at a time.
Hey, we'll get right back to the episode, but I wanted to speak briefly to the pastors, the church planners, and the ministry leaders who might be listening. If you're out there, the Activated team exists for you. If you're leading in a church or ministry setting, we want to connect with you. We have a team of coaches, spiritual directors, and trainers, as well as workshops and retreats that we host for people just like you. Our heart is to support you because we know that well-loved leaders lead healthy churches and ministries, and we think that's a good thing. Click the link in the description below to let us know a little bit more about who you are and how we can serve you, and let us love you the way that you love the people you serve. Let's get back to the episode. What's wild for me is I can hear that story, and I can see a fork in the road where it's like, do I see this as foolish or do I see this as faithful?
Yeah.
And I could see someone arguing either way, right?
Exactly.
But you guys have a decision to make about because you're praying people and you believe that God's speaking. So you have to go, all right, Lord, now what?
Yeah. And I think what helped us to know that this was a faithful thing is because every time they checked on the baby, she was good. Like they would say her vitals are good, her heartbeat is good, and she doesn't have a lot of amniotic fluid, but she has just enough to survive around her mouth and nose. And it was just like, how is that possible? Like, why? It was just so baffling. We knew, like, this has to be God. Yeah. She's still alive. Yeah. And I'm not going to take that out of his hands into mine.
So it starts to feel a little more obvious for you guys that, like, God's doing something here.
We don't know what he's doing.
If his hand is on it, then we are just going to pause.
Guards off.
Be still and know that he is God.
Yeah.
But still scary though, because I mean, the doctors have told you there's significant risks here, right? For the baby, for you, and Fikre, for you, knowing this, your wife's it's not only your unborn baby that's at risk, but like your wife, like she's putting her life on the line here.
Right.
What is that doing for you?
It is putting my faith into practice as I'm still preaching and teaching to our youth ministry throughout the summer. And as this is happening, it's that, youth ministry gets very active in the summer. Mm-hmm.
So you're supposed to play games and do camps and stuff like that. Meanwhile, in your mind, you're thinking, is my wife going to be here in a month?
Yeah. The Lord showed me something, but just a little bit before we got married, or a couple of years before we got married, I was considering enlisting in the military. And as I was going through the process with the Marines and all those things, I was praying. And at that point, the Lord settled in my heart, what he told to Joshua, be strong and courageous, for I am with you. Mm-hmm. And, people would ask me at that point in time, have you decided whether you're going to go or not? At that time, it was, the war in Iraq, 2001, all these things. And so everyone was really concerned. And I said, all I know is that the Lord told me to be strong and courageous because he is with me. Mm-hmm. And what's been interesting is that every time I faced a challenge in this particular situation, that is what I kept hearing the Lord say, be strong and courageous because I am with you wherever you go. Mm-hmm. And so as we went through this, it was just trust that the Lord is here, trust that the Lord is here. And what we saw was our church family mm-hmm. come around us in ways that we had not experienced. We've experienced it in, the general loving ways for our wedding, when our other children, things like that, and celebratory situations. But this was the first time that we experienced it while we were, I'd say, definitely in that valley of the shadow of death, mm-hmm. where the presence of the Lord, showed up through his people, and also in the stillness at night, where we're sitting there praying, Lord, we know that we can wake up to something very different tomorrow, right? But we're going to trust in you. And so it was very hard leaving her each day, at home. Mm-hmm. My mom was there and she was able to care for her. Her mom was there to be able to care for her, as well as, and the kids, as well as some other folks who were just really helpful during that season, my brother and sister. And it allowed us to just rest and know that God is caring for us through his people. Yeah. It was the whole of the church coming together, surrounding us. And that also gave us a peace. God, you're in the mix.
I love hearing that because that for me is the picture of what the church is always. It's the city on the hill, right? Like they're supposed to be an example to the world of how good it can be when you're surrounded by people who know you and love you and embrace you. And to know that you guys got to experience that, like that there's a richness there that maybe you hadn't experienced that completely before. That kind of stuff floats you through seasons of despair, right? To know like maybe today I can't believe the way I want to, but I'm surrounded by a community of people that are believing on my behalf. And definitely gets you through that darkness to the other side.
Yeah. And it's just, it's the friend who was the OB who she called. It was the friends that stepped in the night that her water broke. We were moving out and we had to be out. Otherwise we had to pay a whole new month's worth of rent.
Yes,
and right. So
oh my gosh.
Three guys, they took my keys. They met me at the hospital, took my keys, mm-hmm. went to our house, and moved us out, cleaned our apartment, packed up our U-Haul, and got us out, and dropped everything out so we didn't have to pay another month's worth of rent.
Saved us, yeah.
And while they just looked at me and said, take care of your wife. Yes. We've got everything else. Yep. And just great guys who are still friends, to this day. But you see what it means, when Acts says, and they all had everything in common and no one was without, that's what I think we were able to see in that time.
For sure.
And so you're going through a significant trauma, you still have this experience of like, but we got to see the church be the church. Yes. And so you're starting to see a little bit of a silver lining of like, okay, God's doing something. But you're still going through this trauma, the terror. So what happens next? You're home on bed rest and you're hoping you can make it to 24 weeks where there's viability. So what happens now?
We would have new information every time they did an ultrasound. And one significant change in that 4 weeks is that they said I developed something called placenta previa, where my placenta moved and shifted and covered the vaginal pathway to where I would have to have a C-section if I was to give birth. I couldn't do it vaginally. This was something that was considered negative because it made things complicated and required surgery. But on the other hand, it literally protected the baby from coming out because, again, they said I was open and I could get infection and, she could, fully come out. Like there were so many things. But now I was able to develop more amniotic fluid as I was eating, drinking, growing.
Yeah,
And I was able to retain more amniotic fluid, which helped her to stay alive. But as it was saving her life, it was putting me at risk because the way the doctors explained it to me, again, I'm not OB, this is how they explained it to me, but they said that the placenta is so nutrient rich but every time it is bumped or moved or pressure on it, it's almost like a sponge. So I would bleed. So before the amniotic fluid came, but now there's bleeding, and they said I could bleed to death.
So you want to find a sweet spot kind of like the baby is big enough and healthy enough to be born, but you're also every day you go beyond 24 weeks is like as risk to your body.
Yeah, because I'm bleeding constantly. I also developed gestational diabetes, which was another thing that
Did
my
they have
blood
any?
sugar can't.
This is just a laundry. It's like all the things that my wife
good
told me
news.
could happen. It's like these are all things, scary things that can happen.
No good news.
But all the while they're telling you the baby's healthy, the heartbeat's
But
going.
All the while.
not just healthy, but the amniotic fluid from that was increasing at a faster rate because my sugar was high. So because I had gestational diabetes, this was giving her more nutrients, more amniotic fluid was developing where normally babies would be heavier because you have gestational diabetes. But so now she's premature, but she's getting this extra.
So everything that would normally be like, this is bad, this is dangerous, this is no good for you is like, they're like, but in this case, it's actually helping the baby.
It's still bad for you,
It's
Keisha,
still bad
but
for
it's
you.
great
It's
for the baby.
actually
okay, so-
worse for you.
So this is an interesting point because I do my best to keep my eyes peeled for the gospel, like wherever I see it, wherever I can see a story of life and death and resurrection, or someone putting themselves at tremendous risk or suffering for the sake of another, and I just see that so clearly here because you're every piece of news that the doctors have for you say, Lakeisha, this puts you at risk. You're in greater danger, but your child is a bit safer now. And the fact that you continue to say, yes, like I will move into greater risk for myself to protect the baby that and by the way, and the other gospel component here is the baby hasn't done anything for you yet. And
No.
so you're not even saying, oh, I'm to do this because it's going to work itself out in my favor. You're just saying, I love this child and I will put myself at risk if it means protecting the baby, which is, that's what I see on the cross. Like, is God saying, I will not only put myself at risk, but allow myself to be put to death for the sake of the ones that I love, who maybe aren't going to do anything for me.
Yeah, it wasn't easy, and I'm not gonna say it wasn't a struggle because it was. And at this point, we made it to 24 weeks, and they admit me. And so now they're managing my diabetes. Now they're discovering this placenta previa, monitoring my bleeding. There's different teams coming in and out.
She's still on bed rest.
Yes,
but
but you're at the hospital now. Okay.
Yeah, but I'm in the hospital now, right? And so one doctor comes in, after these rounds of all of the treatments that I'm going through, and he sits by the side of my bed, and he says, Lakeisha, I believe that is very noble what you're trying to do, but he said, I want to caution you because you can do all of this and still not leave here with the baby. He said the baby could have pulmonary dysplasia, which was a lung disease the baby will have for the rest of their life. It was another big name disease that was involved in the lungs where machines would have to support the baby for 100% of the time and would only last about 24 hours, It's like, so you're doing all of this so that you can give birth, but you still won't leave here with the baby. It's 50% chance. And he said, if it was my daughter, I would tell her not to do it. And then he got up and walked out. And I sat there with God and I cried and I said, he's right. What am I doing? I'm doing all of this. Meanwhile, I had just started a new job. I lost my job. There were other things because this is 4 weeks. of
And you
me
just moved
laying
into
here.
a new home.
But had just moved out. So it's like, Lord, what am I doing? I'm losing everything in my health, and I don't even know if this baby is going to survive this. And all I kept thinking about was when Jesus was telling the disciples, eat of my flesh, drink of my blood. And then people got up and was like, that's impossible. And they just walked away. But there was some that stayed like, why didn't you leave? But you have everything.
Where else do we go, right?
Where else do we go?
There's nothing else.
I know this sounds impossible, but I have to figure out how to do it, because where else am I going to go? And so that's how I felt. And that's what I told God. I said, what else am I going to do but follow you? Everybody's telling me that I'm doing the wrong thing. And it was so funny that I looked up, and on the TV, there was a music video playing by Destiny's Child. If Jesus says yes, nobody can say no. I thought,
at that moment.
Right at that time.
Come on now.
And I thought it was hilarious, but I said, okay, if you say yes, Lord, I don't care what doctor or intern comes in here. Nobody can say no. You say yes. So that rejuvenated me. That gave me joy. And I would just remember to focus on what the Lord is doing. So my doctor would come in, the one that was taking really good care of me. He would come in and he would say, okay, Miss Prince, we made it another week. So we were at 24, then we're at 25. 26, then 27. And so we were celebrating, because the more weeks that we had, the more viable, that they call it, the more viable she would be. But so week 27, we celebrated our wedding anniversary. And my husband's so sweet. He brought me my favorite steak dinner from the closest Applebee's to the hospital, and he brought cheesecake from the Cheesecake Factory. We watched our favorite movie on Netflix.
You went to two different restaurants just to get
for
just
our anniversary.
Yeah.
She's doing all of this. The least I can do
is go to two restaurants.
Show up with her favorites.
Yes. So he went all out, and we had a nice evening, and we watched our little movie on the iPad. But then the doctors and nurses are coming for their rounds, and they tell him he has to leave because visiting hours is over.
Yeah.
And I just burst into tears. I was just like, Lord, I can't do this anymore. Why? Like, our anniversary. And I just cried. I'm like, I miss my husband. I miss my kids. I'm like, this is so hard for me. And I'm like, Lord, I know that this is your will. And I'm just, I don't feel like I can go another step. And then 3 days later, I was at the hospital and was going to the restroom and noticed that the baby's umbilical cord was hanging out. And I was like, oh my gosh. Yes.
Okay, again, not an OB. Pretty sure that's not supposed to happen, right? Okay.
And they told me it was impossible because I had this placenta previa, that the placenta was covering, so nothing could come out. They immediately rushed me to surgery. Yes, Ficray wasn't there. Okay. Everybody's scrambling. And what they explained to me is why they went so quickly is they said, imagine a water hose. When you bend a water hose, everything stops. And so they said that everything stops going to the baby. All the nutrients, the blood flow, just everything. So they had to get her out as soon as possible.
Okay.
But so they call Ficray. He comes to the hospital. And first thing when I wake up, I'm asking, is it a boy or a girl? So we find out it's a girl. Okay. We're all excited. I'm excited, and he's excited. But then the doctor comes in shortly after, and he explains. He said, Miss Prince, do you remember the 2 lung diseases I said the baby could have? And I said, yes, one is the one that she can have for the rest of her life. And the other is the kind that would only allow her to live for 24 hours. And he said, yes. And he said, well, she has both. Oh, no. And again, I'm devastated. Yeah. And I had just had surgery maybe an hour ago. And they say, would you like to go and say hello and goodbye to her. And it was just like, this is impossible, but again, they had prepared me because everybody told me the worst case scenario.
Yeah. That's so much. I mean, because you've just been through, a C-section is a surgery, and you've been in the hospital for a month now, but they're telling you, hey, surgery's over. It's time to go say hello and goodbye to your baby. I cannot even imagine the amount of weight that you're experiencing at this time.
So I walked in. So he has this conversation with her just before I get to the hospital. Then he comes back in to kind of reiterate some of those things and says, hey, I'll let you guys get settled for a moment. But, the nurse will come in and take you guys down. So we got her into the wheelchair and headed down the hall a few turns. And, then we're in the NICU. And then that, she was probably only about, I think she was 2 pounds.
2 pounds.
Oh, wow.
She doesn't have any body fat. I mean, zero. Doesn't even have the first brown fat that you're supposed to have to warm you up and all those things. And
skin and bones.
Yeah, skin and bones. And she's got tubes, going in her mouth. She's got her eyes covered. She's under the light to keep her warm, but also, to keep jaundice away or down.
Yeah.
And, they're doing basically 100% life support. And so her doctor had to breathe into her to inflate her lungs. So her lungs would not naturally open. So no crying, none of that stuff.
Yeah.
The doctor had to
He had to use force. That's what he said. He said
forceful breath to open up her lungs. Got her lungs opened up, but then they just started immediate life support, trying to give her everything that she needed, in the moment. And then
stay alive. Yeah.
And so from the immediate, like from the get go, it doesn't look great.
No,
not at all.
No,
not at all. Everything that they said was going to happen was happening.
Yeah.
And so we stayed as long as we could, but then I started feeling physically ill and I had to go back and lay down. They gave me a phone number I could call to check on the baby throughout the night, or whenever I wanted to, I could call and get an update. And so all I could do was sleep, and then I would wake up and pray and then call the NICU. First time I called, they said, yep, 100% supported on the machine. She's still alive. I was so afraid that if I was to sleep through the night, I'd wake up and she would be gone. And so I would call every time I woke up, and I would pray and call. 100% supported. Go to sleep, pray, call back. Oh, she's doing a little bit better, maybe about 80% supported. It's like, okay. I would go to sleep, wake up, pray, call again. And, oh, she's doing a little bit better, maybe 60% supported on the machine. So it's like, okay, so she's doing some breathing by herself, and I'm starting to feel a little hopeful. So I got a little bit longer stretch of sleep at this point. And so I wake up in the morning and I call first thing, and they said, she's only 50% supported on these breathing machines. She's really trying. They started calling her feisty. And I was just like, thank you, Jesus. And I'm telling the nurse, I've been praying all night. Like, the prayers are working. And I'm calling my mom, keep praying. It's working.
Yeah.
I'm just so happy and excited. And I get a knock at the door, and it's the doctor coming back.
In the morning.
Yes, in the morning. At that point, I get a knock at the door. The doctor's coming back, and oh, hey, Miss Prince, how you doing? And he pulls up a chair to sit next to me. And I said, I'm doing great. He said, you are? What are you talking about? I said, she started out 100% supported on the life support machine, the breathing machine. Now she's only 50% supported, and they're calling her feisty. And I was praying all night, and God, and he just let out this sigh of relief, and he said, Miss Prince, oh my gosh, he said, I'm so hopeful. He said, I gotta be honest with you. He said, I stood outside your door for 3 minutes before I could walk in because I thought you were gonna tell me the baby passed away. And I was just like, no, my God is awesome.
So all the people who know what's supposed to happen in this situation
yes.
are surprised to discover something else is happening.
Exactly. And they're starting to say, oh, she was meant to be here. And oh, she's the feisty one. And oh, she's fighting to be here. And I'm like, it's a miracle. Then she
Okay, so I have a question for you at this point. So when you're in the hospital bed several weeks earlier and you're just like, God, this is crazy. Like, I don't know why are you calling me to do this thing that makes no sense? Everyone who knows what's going on is telling me this is a bad idea. And now you're at this point where all the people who are telling you this is a bad idea are saying, maybe something's going on here.
Yeah.
What is that like just as a faith experience?
I was just in awe. I just kept pointing to God. Like, if you didn't believe in God before, I hope you believe now, because a real life miracle just happened in front of all of our eyes.
What's interesting is they were all doing their jobs and they were all trying their hardest to keep a realistic mindset. But at the same time, once they saw that this we had turned this corner, the baby had turned this corner, they gave themselves the opportunity to celebrate alongside, you know. And I think that was one of the things, you know. So we had another child after this one where we're saying, no, we definitely want to come back. We already have.
Wait, you guys went back for more? You like after all this, you're like, yeah, let's do it again.
I know. Look, that was God too.
Okay, that's another story for another time. Yeah.
God too.
But for right now, you've got the baby in the NICU, and what I'm curious about is the doctor came and told you she's got both these lung conditions. She's going to be on life support, and it's probably not going to last very long. And even if she does last long, she's going to have this lung condition for the rest of her life.
For the rest of her life.
Okay.
For the rest of her life.
That's still a concern. So what happens there?
We had no idea how we were going to handle that.
Right.
No idea what that was going to look like. For the next 3 months, she was in the NICU. And during that time, they told me to prepare myself for the ups and downs of being in the NICU. There could be surgeries, there could be setbacks, there could be all types of things, and that I needed to gird up, just kind of be ready for this. And she didn't have a roller coaster. She had a steady incline. She had a steady rotation of services, like her eyes, her lungs, her kidneys. And she had steady progress. There was one instance where they said there was a hole in her heart, but I think it was part of the development that didn't happen in the womb. And they thought they may have to do surgery, but then it closed by itself. So she just continued to develop. Like she just had a steady process of healing. And
there was one day, probably about a month and a half to 2 months, while she was still in the NICU, where they said that she actually reached up, and this is a little baby who barely has muscle, barely has anything. She reached up and she pulled all of the tubes, all of the
I actually have it on
compressors
video.
out of her mouth, and she breathed on her own, completely unsupported, for over an hour, and they eventually had to put everything back.
Yeah, but she's just like, let me do my thing. Like,
right.
Exactly.
She was the feisty one. They called her feisty. They still called her. But God was faithful, and she was able to come home in December. She did still have to come home with an oxygen tank. And I had the double stroller because I had the baby, and then I had the car seat, and then I had a backpack that I would put the oxygen tank on. So, because at this point, we still had to go see the specialist. And instead of them coming to her, we had to go to the specialist. But we would go once a month. And then I started to get a report saying, oh, she's doing good. You can come back in 3 months now. And then, oh, she's improving. Make it 6 months. And then it was a year. And we were getting monthly,
which is that's like normal. You take a kid to the doctor every year for a physical, right? Like that's just
the normal progression. It went back to like a normal checkup. And then one day we went for our lung chest x-ray because she has this lung disease, the BPD. And after our last chest x-ray at the Children's Hospital, I got a letter in the mail saying that you no longer have to come back for chest x-rays. The BPD has been dissolved and she no longer has this disease.
The
And
disease that
it
she
just-
was supposed to have for the rest of her life.
for the rest of her life. They said it has been dissolved and just sent me a letter in the mail.
And now here we are, I think before
Yeah.
her first
But
birthday.
they
And-
weaned her off the oxygen tank before she turned 1. But we carried that oxygen tank for a really long time, and they just said it was gone. And for years after, she has played soccer. She's in the dance ministry. She is, she runs and plays, and she barely has to even use an inhaler. And
maybe once in a year.
yeah, just barely.
my son uses an inhaler more than that. He's
Yeah.
just got
But you
asthma
would
or
never
whatever.
know that she was supposed to have this illness. One was a terminal, and the other one was supposed to be a long-lasting illness. The Lord has healed her and has been faithful in her development. And now she's 11,
Yeah.
and she's published her own children's book with my mom, and she is done several dance recitals, and she's like this accomplished 11-year-old.
Until we tell the story, most people have absolutely no idea
Just
that she was ever
seems
born
like a-
premature.
normal kid,
Regular
Yeah.
11-year-old girl.
and she
Yeah.
is amazing. I tell her when she walks in the room, I say, you're my miracle baby.
Yeah, because I have an 11-year-old here too, and there's times when they get a little attitude or whatever. I'm wondering, like, for you to be like, you're my miracle, but you're testing me right now. I can imagine.
Oh no, she's a sweetheart.
Yeah.
There's those times
Yeah,
where,
of course.
hey, God
Every
wanted
kid,
you here.
every
Uh-huh,
kid.
God
yeah.
wanted you here. So
But for you guys to be doing that, and then Fikri, for you to be in full-time ministry that whole time too, and still in ministry, still in pastoral ministry, having seen God's faithfulness in this really undeniable way, what kind of impact has that had on the way that you approach doing ministry now? How do you engage sharing the gospel with people, seeing the power of what God can do?
I think in a lot of ways it takes sometimes the natural impossibility of things out of my mind. And as I pray with people after service or, counsel with people and things like that, and know that they go through very real struggles and things of that nature, I don't feel like I'm utilizing, Daniel's testimony of God delivering you, out of the lion's den. I don't feel like I'm using, Paul and Silas's testimony. I can draw from the fact, God, I've seen you do miraculous things in real time, and so when I'm praying with people and when I'm preaching, teaching, and things of that nature, for me, everything is on the table. There are so many things that as pastors we put on ourselves and say, well, I have to.
Yeah.
And the reality is, Lord, this is your work, and I'm just going to be faithful to show up. And I think that part of it was born in that process.
Yeah.
I'm going to show up every day to be there present with my wife. I'm going to make sure my kids are good, and I'm going to make sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And the days where I knew that I could not prepare to preach, or I just was not in that headspace, getting my team involved to be able to, because again, it wasn't about me. And I lost that, that thought that I have to press. It's by my work.
Right.
And so there's a bit of a freedom for me now in the way that I pastor, and I'm going to be faithful to what God has called me to, but it is not by my strength that any of this stuff gets done.
I love hearing that from you, because it's consistent with what I've experienced and what I've heard from other people who have been in ministry long term, is that you spend your first 5-10 years in ministry thinking like, I'm really going to do this. I'm going to change the world. I'm going to bring revival or whatever. And then you hit a point where you're like, actually, a lot of things I'm trying to do aren't working. And a lot of stuff that I'm not trying to do, God's making happen. And you kind of reach this point where you throw up your hands and go, God, do whatever you want, and I'll be here for it. Like, just tell me where you want me. And it's a liberating way to approach ministry, where it's just like, oh, I don't have to force this to work. God's going to do it, and I get to show up and be a part of it.
Be
and that's
obedient.
a delight. I have to tell you guys this story. I feel like I could listen to it 100 times. I'm so thrilled to be able to share this story with the people who are going to get to hear it, and especially for people in ministry and thinking about going through challenges where you really kind of have to ask yourself, like, God, how much can I take? How much can I really go through and continue to proclaim good news to people? God, I'm not experiencing any good news right now. Like, this is all valley of the shadow of death. And so to hear that you guys have come through on the far side of that and say, no, it's actually worth it. Well, I guess I'm assuming it's worth it. So that brings me to my last couple questions here. The first question is ministry still worth it?
Yes, ministry is still worth it. And I believe that I'm able to share my testimony and serve in ministry differently because I know a different part of God that I didn't know before that happened. And I knew God on the mountaintop, but I had not really known God in the valley. But I faced the shadow of death. And I was able to not fear because I could also see that he was with me the whole time. And I was okay. And not just that I was okay, but that he was working all things for my good.
Yeah.
And that was so beautiful and painful. But on the other side, I felt like I loved him that much more. And I understood his love for me that much more.
Yeah.
So it made life not easier to live, but I know someone's watching out for me. I know he will be there to catch me. He'll guide me if I'm going into the deep end and not the shadow. Like, he is there. I don't have to fear death.
Yeah.
Because he's with me.
I mean, I love the way that you worded the word picture of kind of, I can jump in the water. And for us as followers of Jesus, like, and the example that he sets is not just, it is oftentimes, yeah, I will save you from drowning, but goes beyond that. And it is like, you can drown and die.
Yeah.
And I still got you.
Yeah.
You know, like, there is hope beyond like the worst case scenario. I got you.
True.
Yeah.
And for me to answer that question, is ministry still worth it? Mm-hmm. I think it absolutely is worth it, but you have to be reminded that when you walk in ministry, it does not mean that everything is going to go right or the way that you think. Mm-hmm. The obstacles will come, and all of the obstacles do not mean get out of ministry. All of the obstacles don't mean that you've done something wrong.
I mean, I love hearing it, and I especially love hearing it from people who have credibility. Like, you guys aren't day one ministers saying, "Oh, it's worth it. We're having so much fun. It's so great." You're saying, like, "No, we've seen the valley, and and it is still worth it. Like, God is still good."
Yeah.
And so that kind of brings me to my last question, which is Jesus still good news to you?
Absolutely. There's, what we learned in this, there's a portion of this story, where everything is locked up in a U-Haul. She's on bed rest. We're trying to figure everything out. Finances aren't great. And you get to the point where you realize, if all I have is Christ, I'm good.
That's all I need.
That's all I need. And so I would absolutely say, is Jesus worth it?
Yes.
100 times out of 100. No matter what you have to lose and no matter what you gain, he is still worth it. He's
the only constant. Everything, literally everything in our lives have changed. And Jesus has been the only constant, the only thing that has kept our marriage together. Going on 21 years, the only thing that has kept our children healthy is Jesus. Yeah. And I can't see doing life without him.
Yeah.
He is life. He is truth.
He is worth it.
He is everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you two, thank you so much. I mean, this was a really there's a lot of personal stuff in here. We use some anatomical terms in this episode that we have not used on this show before, and I'm glad, because that's the reality. Like, this is what God did, and you guys are willing to tell it exactly as it was. I'm aware of people who might be listening who are, your story is very, very unique. It's possible that there's someone out there who's going through almost the same thing, but it's probably even more likely that there's someone else who's saying, my story is not that story, but I'm in the valley, and and I need someone else to kind of bolster my faith so that I can trust that there's good news on the other side. Would you two be willing to pray maybe specifically for those people who are saying, I'm in the valley?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this day that you've given us. This day is the day that you have made, and so we can rejoice and be glad in it. And so, Lord, thank you for the joy that you have poured into this day. Help us to see it. Help us to find it. Help us to call it out that you have given it to us, and every good gift comes from you. And so, Lord, thank you for these moments. And Father, for those who are today finding themselves in the midst of the struggle where it does seem hard to see you, it does seem hard to see the light, Lord, I pray that they would hear this story, that they would hear our testimony and be reminded that you are the champion. You are the one who has won time and time again. You've been faithful. You were faithful in the lion's den with Daniel. And thank you for that story, that testimony. Lord, you were faithful with Paul and Silas in the prison, God. And so we thank you that we have that story of your faithfulness, your goodness. We are thankful that you brought Peter, Lord, out of trouble and back to the disciples, Lord, that story. And so, Lord, we just thank you that you allow us to go through tough situations and you show up. You are there with us. You are present. And so meet our brothers and sisters where they are right now, in the midst of the hospital rooms, in the midst of the funeral homes, in the midst of the darkness of their bedrooms. God, I pray that you would meet them in those moments, and that you would shake whatever walls you need to, that you would cause the lions' mouths to be closed, that you would allow there to be a peace today and tonight, Lord, where they would find rest, and that they would know that they are in your arms. Thank you, Lord, that you have comforted us in our worst moments. And I pray, God, that you would comfort them with the same comfort that you have given us, Lord, where we are still able to call upon your name, even after coming through the valley time and time again. As you are the God of the valley, you are the God of the mountaintops, and we will consistently trust you. And I pray that our brothers and sisters who hear this will do the same.
Yes.
So Jesus, thank you for being our Savior, for loving us, and not just saving us from our sin, but guiding us and teaching us on what it means to follow after and know the words of the Father and know the heart of the Father, that we would return to the journey with him. And so, God, we just thank you for these moments. Thank you for Tim. Thank you for blessing us to be a part of this conversation today. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Lakeisha, Fikri, thank you guys so much for this. This has been a genuine delight to get to be part of sharing your story. This is the first time on this program I've ever gotten misty-eyed. So you guys can consider that a win, I think. But I want to thank you for being here. It means a lot, and your transparency is really beautiful. That's going to be it for us this time on Grace and the Gravity, where pastors you don't know from churches you don't attend tell true stories of good news, really, really good news from right here on planet Earth. We'll see you guys next time.